During the winter of 2014, Alton Schoenberger, a Brazilian-Canadian tourist, was meandering through the majestic Uluwatu Hindu Sea Temple that crowns a beautiful coastal cliff on the southern tip of Bali, Indonesia. When he happened upon a group of Balinese long-tailed macaques, the temple's resident monkeys, he saw an exciting opportunity to score some choice action footage. Hoping to capture himself feeding and interacting with the monkeys, he hit record, laid the camera down on a ledge of an adjacent wall. Not a moment after he began tossing food towards the animals, an unseen monkey emerged from behind the wall, snatched up the GoPro, and scampered away with it, retreating under a forest canopy nearby. One of the temple's employees later intervened and negotiated with the monkey for the camera's safe return. In the end, Schoenberger got his GoPro back, along with some indelible footage. The camera had remained engaged throughout most of the skirmish, and Schoenberger put the resulting pièce de résistance on YouTube as Monkey Steals GoPro Hero 3+. Now, despite its absurdity and seeming singularity, the constellation of events at the crux of this video is by no means rare.
Yeah. Oh, he opened the camera! Yo, monkey! No! That's a fucking $500 camera. Fuck, it's a GoPro!
This incident only represents a small fraction of what is becoming an increasingly common occurrence: animals stealing cameras while they are in the midst of recording and inadvertently making movies. YouTube is teeming with videos born of these encounters. Aside from monkeys, other known camera thieves turned filmmakers include octopuses, dogs, manta rays, sea lions, sharks, crabs, eagles, striated caracaras, gulls, squirrels, bears, lions, and foxes, to name only a few. Cumulatively, the videos that comprise this creaturely catalog manifest enough distinctive similarities in production style, structure, and content to signal the arrival of a new cultural form, one that I call accidental animal videos. They typically begin with the human putting the camera into position, either with some kind of intention to record an animal or an outdoor scene, but they take a distinctive turn when an animal abruptly absconds with the device. A struggle usually ensues, and the animal either surrenders the camera or loses interest in it. The camera is always recovered, otherwise there would be no footage, and the resulting recording is often unintelligible. But it is uploaded anyway, and shared online, usually accompanied by perfunctory descriptive title or explanatory notes. This concept of accidental animal videos builds on Stella Bruzzi's notion of accidental films, which she defines as amateur documentary works that lack premeditation, intention, authorship, and narrative, that capture something consequential by happenstance, rather than by design. She names Abraham Zapruder's silent 8mm film footage from the JFK assassination as the accidental film's most exemplary form. Abraham Zapruder, for example, almost didn't bring his camera with him on that fateful day in November 1963. But thanks to a fortuitous series of events, he ended up contributing to the making of one of the most fetishized and scrutinized documents in the history of film. Footage which became integral to the investigation of the assassination, and yet was ultimately useless to it at the same time. The artlessness of accidental films and their lack of intelligibility may intensify their perceived documentary authenticity, but it certainly doesn't guarantee it. Accidental films are far too intimately implicated in the unfolding of an event to depict it with any kind of clarity or coherence. What defines accidental films is, then, not simply the fortuitous circumstances of their production, but rather their indexical bond with the happening of an event. They don't show the event so much as the attempt to depict it. The camera's struggle to capture reality, while being subject to reality's forceful refusal to be captured. But what is this reality that refuses to be represented? With regards to the Zapruder footage, it was the tantalizing but terrible truth about who killed JFK. To ask the same of Monkey Steals GoPro Hero 3+ by comparison might seem ridiculous, but I really do think The video is far more than frivolous fodder for the insatiable internet content machine. I want to make a case for the cultural value of accidental animal videos as multi-species ethnographies, life writings, visually and acoustically rendered that make the human peripheral, offering up the earthly quotidian minutiae of animal life. Monkey Steals GoPro Hero 3 Plus, for example, is steeped in animal sounds. We hear the monkey's breathing, its quick little feet scurrying across the debris-ridden forest floor, crushing leaves, its tiny dexterous hands tapping against the camera's hard casing as it sporadically bumps against its furry form. The slight wiry bulk of its body is suggested in the shadows it casts over the image. We see partial aspects of its body in close-up, its mouth, its eyes, its downy silhouette. And of course, it also emphasizes the materiality of the camera. Its casing, its protective outer layer, and its lens. We're aware of how small and lightweight it is, the ease at which it is snatched up by the monkey's greedy grasp. And yet we're also aware of how rugged it is, able to withstand such graceless and indelicate handling. At the level of aesthetics, then, I consider these bad movies as a kind of animal avant-garde, in the vein of surrealist automatic filmmaking. The surrealists believe that relinquishing human control and intention in creative work would create jarring juxtapositions that would reveal deeper truths to us. In these videos, nature and culture come violently together, and in their clashing create aesthetically alienating and uncomfortable images. These representational failures affirm animal resistance to human attempts to capture them, and at the same time assert the illusory pretense of the nature-cultural divide. They encourage us to think ferally. As such, they constitute instances of feral filmmaking, where nature and culture enjoy an uncanny meeting that suggests that they are not meeting for the first time. Feral, from the Latin fera, doesn't just mean wild. It often specifically designates a state of wildness after an escape from captivity or domestication. It more commonly describes a passage back to nature, a primordial reversion, a slippage into a primitive or original state, exiled and estranged from culture and civilization. When the camera finds its way back to so-called nature, nature becomes cultural, forfeits the human, and erodes its idealistic partitioning of nature and culture. Feral filmmaking prompts us to abandon questions of who and what belong where, and inquire instead about the world that is, the world we become awakened to when we acknowledge the cast of multi-species actors that share in the responsibility of its existence. These videos are claimed neither by the natural nor the social sciences, thus require an equally feral approach that embraces plurality, one that is cross-disciplinary and capacious enough to accommodate an array of species and ways of knowing. One such approach is that of multi-species ethnography, a new turn in cultural anthropology, which describes work that acknowledges the mutual implication of humans and other life forms at the intersection of ecological relations, political economy, cultural representations. It attends to the agency of non-human species and at the same time challenges and shows the limits of traditional ethnography's humanist and anthropocentric perspectives. Multi-species entanglements define life on Earth. Thus, the lives, landscapes, technologies, and techniques of more than human life forms must be integrated into any account of existence. Accidental animal videos are then examples of multi-species ethnographies. They constitute and qualify both human and non-human life experiences, etched into audio-visual form. At the same time, I use multi-species ethnography to analyze these videos as an inclusive method that reconsiders species as a style of being in the world, one manner of worldly comportment among many, and examines these styles as opportunities to explore the bounds of our imagined community, and more importantly, reconsider how we determine who dwells within it. As Matthew Brower outlines in his book, Developing Animals, Wildlife in Early American Photography, representations of animals bring much to bear on how we understand real animals and our relationship to them, and more importantly, how we treat them. Contemporary animal imagery is dominated by what he calls the discursive regime of wildlife photography, which is perhaps best illustrated by documentaries like Planet Earth, where, at the level of the image, animals are relegated to nature and are separated from humans and culture. In doing so, this regime situates photographic capture of animals as though it were a non-interventionist practice that allows for an omnipotent voyeuristic gaze that is not implicated in or accountable to the images of animals it produces. Taking this regime to task, Brower examines the messy and variegated histories of the production of animal imagery, ultimately concluding that animal imagery is not simply born of pointing cameras at animals, but is in fact contingent upon and qualified by very particular physical relationships between animal bodies, the material apparatus of the camera, and the techniques we use to wield it. Thus, accidental animal videos can be contextualized within a longer history of animal imagery and merely mark a new and more intimate stage in the animal-camera relationship. As cameras have become more mobile, portable, durable, and network-enabled, they have gradually become more ubiquitous, and animals are taking notice. This growing awareness is manifested in phenomena such as photobombs or video bombs, accidental animal self-portraits or selfies from hidden cameras such as traffic cams, and even the seemingly unobtrusive ones found in camera traps, as well as those affixed to drones flying overhead. These documents are suggestive of a gradual creaturely collective awakening to cameras, one which, as accidental animal videos illustrate, has reached new heights. The same affordances that make cameras accessible to and favorable for us, and I'm thinking largely of the GoPro here, with its portability, mobility, functionality, and durability, are the same ones that make them amenable to animals, not only to their gaze, but more importantly, to their touch. The transgressive touch of animals signals a coming into consciousness to cameras, but it also jostles our own complacency, pushing us towards admitting that cameras are not shields or barriers that keep a safe distance between nature and culture. Nor are they invisibility cloaks that make us imperceptible to animals. And most importantly, they are not special endowments that allow us mastery over the visual field and all that it contains. They are not only tools for us to indulge our voyeurism and see everything we want without consequence, without having to engage and negotiate with non-human others. In sum, these videos make manifest the mutual entanglement and collaboration of animals and cameras, and humans, that constitute animal imagery. This may seem like an insignificant observation, but this fact is often ignored in popular understandings of animals and visual culture. In what is now considered one of the most influential essays on animal representation, John Berger asks, "Why look at animals?" His question is rhetorical. He is really wondering, why would we bother look at animals at all when there are actually no animals to even look at? Everywhere animals disappear, he laments. This insistence on animal vanishing may seem counterintuitive when you can't really walk down the street without seeing a pigeon, and you can't browse the web without encountering a cat. Well, what Berger is saying is that these are cultural animals, not natural animals, and are therefore not real. In modernity, all our encounters with animals are mediated, and mediation, as Berger sees it, diminishes animals, drains them of their substance, and thus prevents us from having real, authentic, and meaningful relationships with them. Accidental animal videos are important interventions, then, because they illustrate animal involvement in image making and world making, emphasizing that mediation is not an inherently destructive or reductive process enacted by exploitative humans onto passive animals without resistance. To take such a stance means not only dismissing the animals that proliferate in cultural spaces, but also marginalizes them even further, overstating human power over them and denying their presence and participation in the processes of their own representation. These animal and camera encounters are not only taking place then, they are also creating a place for animals to instantiate themselves and their experience into the cultural and historical record, contributing to a growing multi-species visual vernacular of what everyday life is like for other animals. As a case in point, before I conclude, I want to return briefly to Steals GoPro Hero 3 Plus. I selected this video specifically because it offers a unique, regionally and historically specific suggestion of something of what it is like to be a modern coastal Balinese long-tailed macaque monkey at the Uluwatu Temple in Indonesia. These monkeys have responded to the incessant human invasion of their environment by becoming crafty and astute hustlers, integrating cameras, among other things, into their strategies for getting food and feeding their community. They are not only noticing cameras, touching and investigating them, they are also using them to introduce new possibilities into their environments. As it turns out, Alton Schoenberger was not the first person to fall victim to these shrewd and savvy simians. The monkeys at Uluwatu Temple are infamous for their thievery. Macaques in general are known to thrive in anthropogenic environments. As these famous macaque monkeys show, their species style is cunning. They are expert foragers and opportunistic feeders and have a reputation not only for being curious about, but also handsy with shiny new objects they find in their surroundings. Long-tailed macaque monkeys are especially so. As auspicious omnivores, they have a penchant for kleptoparasitism. Known for crop raiding and pickpocketing, they are often considered human pests. And they have managed to refine and improve this kleptoparasitism here at the temple. Tourists are warned by local guides about the monkeys, and signs are posted everywhere instructing tourists to put their valuables away before entering. That includes sunglasses, hats, earrings, purses, and phones, and cameras, especially. They have also been known to yank the sandals off the feet of passerby. Recently, they were also featured in an episode of the BBC series The World's Sneakiest Animals, where the intricacies of their little thefts are explored in greater detail. The monkeys do not steal indiscriminately, we learn. They steal unsecured things from distracted visitors, sure, but they do not always steal things that have immediate value for themselves, like a banana or a bag of peanuts. Rather, they often steal things that are perceived to have value for the human tourists. The more perceived value an item has, the better quality food they can demand in return. You see, the monkeys pilfer objects for the purpose of bartering. They may not steal food directly, but everything they steal is ultimately about food. Stealing cameras is, then, just one part of a much more elaborate, creaturely clandestine economy. And so Monkey Steals GoPro Hero 3, in particular, offers evidence of an awakening of long-tailed macaque monkeys to the presence of cameras in particular in their environments. These cameras are not just present as though they were any other object, but meaningfully present. They become carriers of significance for the monkeys as conspicuous symbols of delicious and nutritious food. And they have become an essential aspect of the experience of day-to-day life for these old-world modern monkeys at the temple, who have managed to craft with impressive and opportunistic panache a more hospitable world for themselves and the living needs of their ever-growing population. Uluwatu Temple is a very popular tourist destination with hundreds of human tourists traipsing through there every day, which means hundreds of cameras come with them as well. Search the hashtag Uluwatu Temple on Instagram, for example, and you will see the macaques pictured throughout, an ethological ethnographic record of the multi-species entanglements that define this special place. I want to conclude with the point that accidental animal videos illuminate what is normally hidden from conventional wildlife imagery, that is, its conditions of production. By showing the seams where reality and representation are stitched together, these little videos lure us away from representation towards the real world of animal life. This is significant because we often only ever encounter animals in and through representation. Representations thus bring much to bear on how we encounter animals and the approaches we take to them, how we make meaning from them, and how we engage with them. Accidental animal videos as multi-species experimental collaborations in feral filmmaking offer up representations made mostly by animals that aren't for us, but are instead for this world we make together, where nature and culture don't remain where we put them, but instead gather together in lively ways, sometimes to mischievous ends. Thank you.